We're going to call the meeting to order. Committee of the Whole meeting, June 28th, 2022. Welcome, everybody. Have you had the chance to look over the agenda? If you've had the chance, are there any additions or omissions to the agenda? Yes, Councillor Digdon.
First of all, sorry for being late.
That's okay.
Reason why I was late this evening is there was an accident in Public Head. And I'd like to bring up a possible review. Sorry that I did not get to talk to Councillor Bork first, but where the number 3 highway meets the highway going into West Pubnico, possible review by Department of Highways for either another stop sign there or something. I was asked to bring that up this evening and asked by the fire chief of the West Pubnico Fire Department, and I assured him that it would be brought up, and I see Councillor Burke is shaking her head yes, so I know I got her full backing on this one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We can put that under for decision. So we'll put that as 7G. So having heard that, anybody else have any additions? Yes.
So I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to bring that up as well. Because when I first came on council, I did ask Department of Highways to put a stop sign at the end of 335 or coming off from 335 because it was taken off. There used to be one there years ago. They took it off. And everybody's saying it's going to be an accident to come. And like I heard tonight, there is an accident there. So thank you for bringing that up.
No problem.
Thank you.
So I'll move the approval of the agenda.
Can I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Saulnier. Question on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Are there any conflicts of interest to declare tonight? Does anybody have a conflict of interest with anything on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on, but know that if you have a conflict along the way, you can declare it at that time. We're going to move on to number 3, and I will let Councillor Bork take this one over.
I'm going to read narrated by Martin Beliveau. And Martin Beliveau is from Lower East Pimlico, and he had a near drowning experience. And I want to read his story that he gave me. So it's been a while. So in 1985-86, he wasn't sure of the year, Martin and his son were at Elwood Provincial Park for the day on Labor Day weekend. Martin was towing his son on water skis. It was about 6 p.m. and Martin's son, David, was water skiing and fell into the water. So Martin turned sharply his speedboat, creating a wake. Martin hit his boat into the wake, and this threw him out of his speedboat at full throttle. And the boat kept going after he was in the water. The speedboat kept circling in the lake around Martin. At this time, David was in the clear. David had 2 life belts on him, and he made it to the shore safely. David is Martin's son. Now, as for Martin, he was to contend with the boat circling around him and getting closer to him each circle. When the boat got close and past him, he had to swim hard as he could to get away from the circling boat. This brought him towards the center of the lake. He was fully dressed and no life jacket. Swimming hard and exhausted him, and then realized he was in the middle of the lake and was in trouble. Ronnie, his brother, was on the shore and called out to Martin, "Are you okay?" Martin answered him, "Okay, but can't make it to shore. I am too exhausted." Ronnie, not being a strong swimmer, tried to reach him to help him, but he couldn't help Martin. Martin said to him, "Go back to the shore so the 2 of us won't drown." Ronnie found the stick and passed it to Martin, thinking it would help him, but it just sank under Martin's weight. Ronnie had to go back to shore. While Ronnie was going to shore, Ron Amy, the crown crier, came to Martin's aid. Martin wanted to put his arm on Ron Amy's shoulder to help himself to float to rest, but Mr. Amy was in fear that Martin would panic and drown him. In the meantime, Mr. Bob Stevens, the park ranger at that time, swam out to help. He asked how Mr. Amy was doing and sent Mr. Amy ashore. Mr. Stevens now had to work with Martin. Again, Martin was wanting to rest by putting his hand on Mr. Stevens' shoulder, but he wouldn't permit Martin to do so. Instead, Mr. Stevens encouraged Martin to swim, but soon realized Martin wasn't making any progress and he was exhausted. Mr. Stevens circled Martin from behind and then started pushing Martin in from the back. Mr. Stevens kept doing this until he got tired and then he had to rest. While resting, Mr. Stevens swam in front of Martin on his back and his foot came up beside Martin. Martin grabbed his big toe. While Mr. Stevens rested on his back, he was also swinging to advance to the shore, towing Martin. This helped Martin to stay afloat without kicking and gave Martin a chance to rest. Mr. Stevens said something to Martin, but Martin didn't understand. Martin asked him what he had said it again, and Martin didn't understand. Mr. Stevens said loud and clear, "Let go of my toe," which Martin did instantly. Mr. Stevens goes behind Martin and starts pushing again. Martin's toward the shore until they both successfully reach the shore. If Martin had panicked, he probably wouldn't be here to witness the bravery of Mr. Stevens. So this is written by Martin, I think along with the help of his friend John Amiro. So right now we'll do a presentation, and I would like to thank, on behalf of myself, Mr. Stevens for saving Martin's life, because Martin's a very important to our community. And without Martin, I think we'd have a lot to lose. So thank you very much. If you want to come forward, Martin and Mr. Stevens. Come this way, please.
So I would just like to present this certificate of appreciation for what you did at this moment. Very, very much appreciated. And like she said, without that, we probably wouldn't be here.
Not probably, definitely wouldn't be.
Thank you. Nice. I'm honored. Thank you very much.
Hey!
Say toe.
I'll give you a short story.
Someone else is taking a picture. You got it? Okay.
A short story. I know how Martin felt that day. I had a similar experience at 10. I went to a Sunday school picnic, and I too was swimming. Got myself in trouble, and I was going down for the count. And out of nowhere, this young girl jumped in, swam out, grabbed me by the hair of the head. I climbed up one side of her, down the other, almost drowning the pair of us. She got me ashore. She's my hero. I'm just paying it forward.
That is nice. That's really good. Thank you for that. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's nice to have good stories like that, isn't it?
Exactly.
Definitely. Right. Okay, thank you. We're going to move on. The agenda number 4, we have a presentation regarding day camp services. We have a few ladies who are here to present. You can come forward to present. This presentation is a bit different than what we typically have. Usually we have organizations coming and they're usually looking for money, right? They're looking for financial requests. This one is a little bit different because it's more about information sharing. So this, just want to caution council, this is not necessarily a council issue, but more of an administrative issue. But they're here to talk about kind of like a gap that they feel, a perceived gap in services, in our recreation services. Okay. Who's going first? Okay. Okay.
And I don't know. Oh, here we go.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was a very good introduction, and that was, I have to say, that was a very moving presentation. That's remarkable. Can't go further without acknowledging that. That was wow. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Chantal, for passing those out. Okay, so there you go. Good evening, Warden, Deputy Warden, councillors, and all attendees of the meeting. My name is Sarah Nickerson, and beside me are Charlotte Stevens Leblanc and Monica Pache. We are here tonight to bring awareness to issues arising from the Argyle Recreation Department's summer day camp. I thank you for the opportunity to speak here with you all, and would especially like to acknowledge the encouragement of our own councillor, Councillor Gordon Boudreau, to bring this forward. Thank you, Gordon. Last week, I asked Jeanette D'Entremont, the recreation coordinator, what the age requirements are for registering a child for Argyle Recreation's day camp. She stated the ages were 5 to 12. However, the kids needed to currently be attending maternelle in order to qualify. Our children are registered for maternelle in the fall, but they currently attend Grandier at Echo Wedgeport. Jeanette stated that in Grandier, they are only doing play-based learning, and with the day camp, they find that the children can still be too young to attend. And technically, yes, Grandier learns through playing. They do, however, participate in field trips, community events, and their classes are integrated and combined throughout the school. They ride the bus, participate in fire drills, and know the rules of the school. It's redundant to say that they are only learning in a play-based environment. They are students at Echo Wedgeport. Where my child cannot be permitted to attend Argyle's day camp, or even go back to daycare at Les Jardins des Petits, it leaves a gap in the service. Although daycare accepts children until age 6, they have ran at full capacity, I believe, for the last 4 years. I want to note that there is only one French daycare in our area. The daycare service, even if available, would still be inadequate for our child's needs. They don't require naps. They need more outside time, and their need for mental stimulation is much more than even a 3-year-old's capacity. I also had the opportunity to speak with Scott Surratt last week, and although he appreciated my concerns, he reminded me that Argyle Recreation does not provide a daycare, and we are not looking for a daycare. Argyle is putting a day camp service out in the community for the community. However, it completely excludes certain children in the community. We chose to have our children previously enrolled at Les Jardins des Petits and then Echo Wedgeport to continue learning the history, culture, and language of their Acadian heritage. We want to preserve the culture and help them learn through their community. Now we will be taking our children out of their familiar surroundings, their friends and community, as we have no choice but to enroll them in day camps offered in Yarmouth. Our children qualify to attend those camps, and we have spoken to 3 different facilities. Argyle Recreation is the only day camp whose requirements differ for 5-year-olds. If someone is running a successful program next door, you should look at that model and use that data to make it work for all the constituents. There are many kids that will have to leave the community just to have a day camp experience this summer. Some of the children need these services due to their parents working full-time. Some of the children need to go elsewhere than their home to enjoy their summer vacation. Some of the children need these services to enrich their social abilities. We cannot do this in our own municipality, where all of us are taxpayers. We feel like our kids are being purposely driven out of the community. And I would like to add, it's not in the presentation, but I've in the last week spoken to 4 different mothers who last year, due to the gap in service, left their full-time careers and have had to do a career change starting this September because they didn't have any services and they were highly regarded in their professions. We started, I'm going to say, a petition with a simple message on change.org last week, simply stating, by excluding these children, it creates an unnecessary gap in recreation services, in recreation activities in our municipality, and forces our children to leave their community to receive this service. To date, we have now 174 signatures. On the back of the presentation, you'll see a graph showing the response, the demographics response. We have started the conversations this way with many concerned community members and heard from many parents in Wedgeport, Plymouth, Belleville, Tuscott, Pubnico, Barrington, Clare, and neighboring municipalities. We have all received numerous texts and messages expressing their concerns and experience about this issue. Our only hope tonight is to raise awareness with our information and then hopefully be advocates for change. I would like to introduce our next speaker, Charlotte Stevens Leblanc, to the council. She has been a leader in the field of recreation for over 15 years and has prepared a piece to share.
I think he's gonna. Okay, Charlotte, I'll press, hold on. Didn't go through.
There. Okay, success.
Technology.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Good evening, everyone. My name is Charlotte Stevens LeBlanc, and I am here tonight as a concerned parent and also as a recreation professional. I am a recreation therapist with a Bachelor of Science in Recreation from Dalhousie University, and I'm also a certified therapeutic recreation specialist. I am now considered a senior in the field and with over 15 years of experience. And I list my background to acknowledge that I fully understand and appreciate the complexities involved in developing and implementing recreation programs and services. As I'm certain the municipality has hired qualified recreation professionals to work in the leadership positions, I would also assume that the staff understand when developing programs for communities, especially when children are involved, key factors to consider would include location, culture, language, and socialization opportunities with their peers. Given that, to provide the best service, staff should be hired based on clientele and participants and not the other way around, and this should be the same with summer staff. In my role as Director of Recreation, Spiritual Care, and Volunteer Services, I complete the applications for grants for summer staff as well. The federal grants now allow for hires between the ages of 15 and 30 years old with no requirement to be enrolled in school in the fall. The provincial grants do still refer to it as the Student Summer Skill Incentive. However, no stipulations are placed on the employer as to who they hire or the backgrounds required. Therefore, the employers are able to choose who they feel is the most appropriate to work in their settings. If you do have staff hired and you acknowledge that there's a gap in abilities, the most appropriate response would be to provide training to the staff to meet the needs of the participants. One of the varying reasons I have heard for removing this group of children from being able to attend day camp is regarding some of the needs of the children, primarily around toileting. This is concerning, given that this may set a precedent that children are excluded based on their needs. Age alone does not make a child appropriate or not, and given that Grandier is a structured, play-based environment, I'm struggling to understand the difference between that and a day camp structure. There are successful programs operating outside the Argyle municipality, which our children do qualify for, which also match their current needs and abilities. Unfortunately, it will be at a detriment to our children having to leave their own communities while attempting to learn French, and to Argyle Recreation financially. I'm unsure which service delivery model the Argyle Recreation Department follows or has chosen to be their guiding principle, but a key piece after any implementation period is evaluation. What works? What doesn't? What are we missing? After evaluations are complete, the next step would be communication. Unfortunately, there's been a lack of communication specifically regarding summer day camps, which has left parents confused and scrambling to find childcare. I ask you to please consider our thoughts and concerns and look to see how we can all work together to provide the best opportunities for the children of the Argyle municipality. We have the chance to create something brilliant and be the leaders in the area of providing recreation to our littlest Acadians.
Did I probably just turned it off?
Okay, now do it.
Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Thank you, Charlotte. It has come to my attention that we are not the only parents that have complained or been concerned towards the Recreation Department on this issue. Out of all the concerns parents have had in the past, no concerns have been resolved. When we discovered that there was a gap in services, we started speaking with other parents who have had kids in this day camp previously. Each response regarding qualifications provided to the parents varied with reasoning. Argyle Recreation cannot expect families to support them if the department refuses to support the community in return. I was told several times that it was doubted if the Recreation Department would change their way of operating day camp. They stress that they operate in a certain way and will probably continue to do so. My concerns as a mother, a taxpayer, and a community member have fallen on deaf ears. My questions to you, Warden, Deputy Warden, and Council, is how many times must concerned parents approach the Argyle Recreation Department in order to have voices heard? I ask that you review with the Recreation Department why their age guidelines were created. Is there a need to divide age groups like your neighboring municipalities, ages 5 to 8, then 9 to 12? Why is the funding to support our Acadian culture for school-age children not as supported? The Acadian language is slowly disappearing. Is that a priority or not? How are we to continue to guide our children in speaking French if we have to take them directly out of the French-speaking environment until they return to school in the fall? It is obvious to us after speaking with the Recreation Department that the only people who benefit from those guidelines would be those in charge of running the programs, not the children or their mothers who are begging to attend them. Thank you.
Thank you. I know it's not easy to come and make a presentation like this, so we appreciate you taking the time. Typically what we do now is we open up the floor to questions or comments from council. So I'm not sure if you're aware, but I am actually the chair of the Argyle Recreation Commission. So I was part of the committee. I've been on the committee for over 15 years, and I was there when we made the decision. I have a lot to say, but I'm not going to say it yet. I'm going to let other councillors speak on the issue if they have any questions or comments that they would like to make before I talk. Councillor Saulnier.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. My questions would be directed probably to you, Nicole, or Deputy Warden. In this letter, it says why we don't take other people's model. Is there a difference? And what is it? Why does it function somewhere else and not here? I guess that's, yeah.
Yep, there is a different model. So in the town, they've separated their groups. So they have two separate camps. They have a different maximum number of students that they take, or kids that they take. I'm also a teacher, so I'm going to use the word student instead of kids because it's just my day-to-day. So they have 5 to 8, then 9 to 12. So, but the way it works is that they see less kids that way than we would. So our model is 5 to 12. up to 35 kids. So we have 3 camps running right now. We have up to 35 kids that can come at each camp between the ages of 5 and 12. So if we were to look at the other model and split the ages up, technically we would be serving probably less people, and we would have to restaff and really reconfigure and think about how that would run. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Boudreau.
I just had a comment. Thank you guys for coming in and great presentation. Thank you.
Are there any other questions, comments? Councillor Surratt.
I guess this would go to the two ladies. So am I right in saying if Jardin were able to take the children, you would not be here making this presentation? Am I right in saying that?
Sure, go ahead.
Sure.
Hold on a second. Oh, okay.
There. Yes and no is, is the simple answer. And sorry, I'll speak for, you can jump in if you feel different. The current model, the way it's set up, would be a daycare situation. So we feel as though our children have exceeded the abilities of the daycare, because the daycare, the way it's set up, is there is nap time in the afternoon, there's short outdoor period times, and considering our children have been in Grandir all year and have followed that model, it doesn't necessarily meet the needs of the children. That being said, I know that that option has been discussed about creating something separate at Le Jardin to create more of a 4 to 6 age group area with a day camp scenario, which would be wonderful. But to put the children who are now 5 after they've completed Grandir back into a daycare scenario, I'm not sure that it would meet their needs the way it's currently set up.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to.
Thank you.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay. I just wanted to give everybody the chance. Okay, so as I mentioned, I've been on Recreation Commission for 15 or more years, and I've been an educator for 26 years. And I was on the committee when we made the decision. We tried it. We tried having the 5-year-olds come, the 5-year-olds who hadn't been to primary. It was a nightmare. It was a disaster. And I'll tell you why it was a disaster. It wasn't just toileting issues. Toileting issues were an issue. It has to do with safety. Number one is safety. As we sat as a Recreation Commission, we were really concerned. What happens when there are many of those 4 and 5-year-olds who weren't able to let's talk about toileting. So if they went to the washroom, they couldn't always go by themselves. So the day camp leader had to go with them, which left the other 9 or 10 children they were supervising unattended. That's a safety issue. There were things like they can't always wipe their bum by themselves. And so they need a leader with them. But it wasn't just about toileting. It's also about the piece about safety around when you have 5-year-olds and 12-year-olds attending the same day camp. Developmentally, they're totally different entities. And they play a lot of dodgeball at day camp. I was a day camp leader when I was a teenager. My daughter was a day camp leader when they tried having the 5-year-olds. One of the things in your presentation talked about when you have something in place, you should evaluate it. They do evaluate it. So we train, but, and I want to make clear, there is training provided for our day camp leaders, directors. Our day camp directors, our recreation directors, and they have 50 plus years of experience between the two of them. They research-based information. They make sure that they are current on what's going on and age-appropriate development and what those children should be and shouldn't be doing. And it was felt like we were going to try it. So, and another thing I noted, I know I'm all over the place, but somebody had said something about not always, lack of communication and not always listening. Our day camp used to run from 9 to 4. which most parents don't work 9 to 4, right? It was tough for parents. So parents came and they made a presentation to our directors, and they brought that to ARC. ARC talked about it. We extended those hours in order to accommodate parents. So I feel like we try to accommodate parents, and I do feel for you. I do, because I know childcare I have 3 children. They're adults now, but I have 3 children. I understand, but I feel like having those 5-year-olds, and as I said, I'm also a teacher. Here's the difference between pre-primary and day camp. Pre-primary is exploratory. So it is not a structured way of teaching kids. So kids go around, and what they do, because they're 4 and 5 years old, is they go to a water table, or they choose a book, or they work with magnetic letters, or it's exploratory. They decide what they want to learn about. So it's very less structured than when they go into primary. Then what happens? They go into primary. And I have a lot of teachers who are primary teachers, and they say when they hit primary, they go from wanting to play to structure, and it's very difficult getting them to refocus. Day camp is structured. It has to be. Otherwise, it's like herding cats. It really is like herding cats. You have to have rules, you have to have structure, and those kids who haven't been to primary yet really struggled with that. We noticed that as well. So those are some of the pieces. We were concerned about the safety. We were concerned about also they can feel really intimidated because they're little. And they're little, and they're with 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, and they feel intimidated. And let's face it, it's not always pleasant. It's not always nice. If you have a child with a toileting issue and you have an 11-year-old who sees that, that's all I'm going to say about that. Right? So these are all pieces. There's so many layers to this and I'm not saying that we would never, ever consider it, but these are the reasons why we made the decision we made. We did try it because we had a demand from parents, and we did try it. We also we did an exit survey with our day camp counselors, and they were like, keep in mind, 16, 17, 18, 19-year-olds, if you're lucky. Those are the ages of your day camp counselors. As teachers, we find it difficult having those kids move from pre-primary to primary and getting them herded. It takes a good 6 to 8 weeks to get them into a routine. These young kids, and I say young kids, 16, 17, 18, 19-year-olds, it's difficult. They were finding it difficult. And they were finding that they were worried about it, and it was constant stress and anxiety for them as well. I'm trying to think. The French piece as well, I was looking through your notes, and they were very extensive. We have to keep in mind that if you think you're sending your children to a French day camp, you're probably not. The option is there that if they want to speak French to their leader, they will, but visit a day camp. You're not going to hear tons and tons of French because not everybody there is French, right? Not everybody speaks French. Not everybody is Acadian. We have tons of diversity within our municipality. Let me think. What else did I want to mention? I don't want to feel like I just want to give you the reasoning. I want you to understand where we're coming from. But we had the little ones also when they're at like those pre-primary ages. Those are the ones who, they cry a lot. They cry a lot when they're at day camp. They cry a lot when they're at pre-primary. They cry a lot because they miss their parents, and it's long days for them. It really makes it a long day. So those are kind of the pieces that I wanted to mention. I think I went over everything, but that is the justification as to why we made the decision we made. We never ever said it was final, but we did try it. We felt like it didn't work out. I've never had a complaint, not one. My district is Belleville, and I am the ARC chair. I've never had a complaint. So that's just the information that I wanted to forward. I'm not sure if you have anything else, CAO News, that you wanted to mention?
I would.
Okay.
Just a couple things. Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, the comments that I might make on this are in relation to how the service is being provided by our staff that have had quite a few years' experience in this area. One of the items that was spoken about was French, and that comes dear to my heart because I'm Francophone and I have a Francophone background. And I know that the Recreation Department have had conversations with the CSAP and other organizations to try to create a Francophone-only experience for day camp. Now, that probably would not include the ages that you would be concerned about, but I do want to address the Acadian question. It was attempted last year, I think, for the first time in a long time. The pickup was very light. It's still early. It could be something that could come into play in the future that might be something that people increase their demand about coming to a Francophone only. Do we invite all languages? Of course we do. The language that we operate in day camp is primarily English, but we do operate in both languages. If a young person speaks in French, the staff is trained to respond in French, those that can. Not every day camp counselor is bilingual, but you have a bilingual counselor in each day camp. The way that we set up our day camps is as follows. 3 huge day camps, ages 5 to 12. I know the primary thing is an issue for you, and I understand that there's a gap there. There is no question that there's a gap in service there. The Recreation Department's perspective is that they aren't the filler of that gap. We recognize that there's a gap there, and we respect the fact that it should be identified. It has not come up a lot since we took out that age group. We took it out in 2019. So we had it there for quite a long time. With COVID, we had to make changes. That was one of the changes we made. So in terms of service provision, our Recreation Department is very proud in the delivery of service. While it may not suit the needs of your children currently, we have ages for a reason. Councillor Albright knows the reasons better than I do. But what we do is try to offer as many seats as possible. So while we do comparisons, and we have, and those are all colleagues of our people, right? They're all colleagues. Those that offer differing day camps in different municipalities, they speak all the time about the pros and cons of each concept. At the end of the day, we landed on geographic. The importance was geographic representation, as well as total amount of day camp participants. So of all of the ones that we examined, you examined it, we also do that every year. We have up to 110 participants that can join our day camp. In Shelburne, it's 30. In Barrington's 45, split 20-25 for the age groups. In Yarmouth, it's 60, 30 in a lower age group, 30 in an older age group. Do you have a legitimate perspective when you say we should consider splitting the day camps in age groups? Yes, that's a legitimate question that is often asked, actually, of our recreation leaders. It may not be publicly known by some of the parents, but it is an ongoing conversation. Can we do things differently? And while it doesn't look like there's a lot of changes that happen from year to year, there are actually quite a few changes. And what I would encourage is, quite frankly, we haven't received any of these complaints from anyone. So if this is coming from the department, that doesn't mean that people aren't complaining, right? They might be complaining to you, but maybe they should be complaining to us, right? So we take every one of those complaints rather seriously. In fact, we've invested in the complaints management software to make sure that we catch them all. So we want to make sure that these kind of complaints are dealt with. The answer might be no, but at least you know that somebody heard your complaint, right? So we don't want to be in a situation, nobody in the Recreation Department, they all take extraordinary pride in what they do. You may not agree with their approach, but they take a lot of pride in what they do and try to deliver an extensive service as much as possible. I would encourage you to continue the dialogue with the department. This is an administration issue. I'm the head of the administration department. It is good that council heard your presentation so that they can understand what the ARC has in place. This doesn't happen all the time, right? We don't have this conversation all the time. So it's important that we have an open dialogue and that we continue a conversation. I can say this as well. Since that you came up with this issue, we've had a number of meetings internally, one of which is to talk specifically about how do we fill the gap, not us as the lead, not us as the lead. We can't hire ECE professionals at the expense of daycare providers. Like they're already maxed. They need all those staff people. If we start hiring those people, those are seasonal positions. They're not gonna apply. They'll probably apply for a daycare camp position. So I have a child. I know that the needs aren't always met by services that are provided. I can respect that. I respect you for that. I know that that's a reality. The situation in this area is that we do hire students. We've traditionally hired students, and traditionally, though I will agree that the federal government grant does allow us to expand our application for ages, who applies is students. And for a variety of reasons, one of which is that the summer camp is for the summer. And so we're restricted as to how many people we could actually interest, even if we put it out there with a nice little, cash check and said, this is a golden egg for you. They may not apply anyway. So that's the actual practical challenges of the department. And so we have already started conversations with the lead of the Jardin des Petits. We know a second location is being opened in Wedgeport when that school is opened. We value that. We can't wait for that. And we see an opportunity to partner. We do. And there may be a way for us to fill this gap, not as the lead, because we simply cannot, we do not have the resources to lead it, but we can certainly support it with very, very high quality recreation directors and very high quality students who are well trained. So I want to leave that maybe positive message for you that it may not happen right away, right? It may not. And really your presentation, I hope that you feel that this may not be for you. This actually may be for your neighbor who has a 3-year-old who might be coming into a 4-year-old situation. It may or may not be, right? It may be you, okay? But it may be for you, it may be for other people. And I've said this to people that I trust, and I say, listen, this may not be for you. The ship may have sailed for you, but for other people, it may not have. And I can assure you that our competent recreation department will hear and try to make adjustments. I just want you to know from an administrative perspective how we feel about your situation, the compassion we have, but that it's a hard no on actually taking that age unless we make changes, which we are open to discussing. Does that make sense? That was long, wasn't it? You're not supposed to agree. Supposed to, no.
Councillor Saunier?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Alain, I think you answered one of my questions would have been what financial resources are out there if we were to accommodate what they're asking for. We'd probably have to hire more, or you'd probably have to hire more staff. And would there need to be some training for that staff? And the second question to that would be, if you accommodate, is there a precedent set here that some people might ask for special needs children in the future, and that would be another expense, and probably some professional help would need to be done for that. So it's like opening a can of worms in some sense.
Thank you for the question. Through you, Madam Chair, I would say that number one, we do hire a special needs individual. The challenge we have is that we don't know how many special needs children may actually put in an application to be in day camp. So we have to invest in that resource in anticipation of that. How busy they might be, it can change from day to day, can week to week, year to year. In terms of training, we would not be comfortable training a student to take on that age group. We would be a lot more comfortable with a post-secondary ECE, early childhood education, would be typical of your daycare providers, or even Grand Enfance have providers. It's usually an NSCC diploma of sorts that provides them the training required to deal with the specifics of that age group. Obviously, every child is different, and some are quite precocious and some are not. But that's part of the training of the ECE. We would not expect a student to get that training through first or second year university.
Thank you.
Councillor Surratt?
Yes, just, Alain, you probably, like Ted said, you've answered some of the questions I had. And, on why Argyle doesn't. I'll just finish by saying this. If it works at other places, we're looking to give it a shot. Maybe down the road, maybe. So if it works at other places, you should be able to work in Argyle. And I've understood the point that you've made, though, about it. Thank you.
So just to respond to that, everywhere that it works, let's say works, is a split day camp situation. So there is no day camp that exists that accepts any 3 or 4-year-olds, zero. There are no day camps, correct. There are no day camps from 5 to 12, first of all, that would take that age group. They're all set up as not taking pre-primary for the reasons that Nicole had stated. So if it is the preference of the recreation department to find a different way to deliver the service, it will have to sacrifice geography. So the reason why they've made that decision, rightly or wrongly, is entirely up to the eye of the beholder. But the geographic importance of that day camp was considered very important. So by doing that, you sacrifice an age, right? I have a 14-year-old. She cannot go to this camp. I'm not going to say, hey, take my 14-year-old, because I know there's 5-year-olds, so there is a reason for these gaps. The reasoning is it's high five. It's informed through high five initiatives and other provincial initiatives. So it's not misinformed. It's unfortunate that some people are missed. It is. There's no doubt. Do we want to change our daycare process to include that age? If that's the decision, it will have to be, the geographic location will be sacrificed, which means that we might have those age groups. We might have them in Drumlin, we might have them in Panaba, we might have them in Plymouth or whatever. But if you don't fit that age group, you're going to have to travel your child further in order to be accommodated. So, and this is just for the purposes of illustration. I'm from East Pubnico, and I have a child that's 5 years old that has gone to grade primary. So there's no issue. They're gonna go to day camp. The 5 to 8-year-olds is in Panaba. Okay, just an illustration. It could be in Pubnico. I'm just saying it's in Panaba. So the parent will have to travel their child from there to there. Right now, East Pubnico is quite accustomed, whether they like it or not, I guess, to go to either Drumlin or West Pubnico, but it will require a geographic change. And if that makes sense, then it makes sense. But I'm saying that that's what you sacrifice when you make that decision. That a decision comes with pros and cons in each case.
Ward Muse?
I guess what I want to say is thank you for your presentation. I know you have legitimate concerns, especially the fact that daycares are filled, and the fact that all of a sudden they might have been in a daycare up until this year where they went to Grandir, and then the summer comes and you have to look for alternate places for your child, okay? Because if you're a working parent, you still have to go to work. The one thing that I would ask is, and it's, you guys, again, thank you for your presentation, but in doing your presentation to council, I'm wondering if you were expecting council to make a decision, okay? Because you have to realize that this is not a council decision. We as council don't tell departments what to do. They, like it's like it was said, it's an administration decision that has to be made. So if you were, and I just thought when I saw that maybe you were coming here to say, okay, council is going to push this. We can't. But as you've heard, they are discussing it with the department and with the administration, okay? So it didn't fall on deaf ears. Definitely did not, and whether it'll change, I can't say that. It's going to be a decision that the department's going to make, the recreation department. So again, we hear your concerns, definitely hear your concerns. And I guess I can say, hopefully things will change, but I don't have a say in whether it will or not.
Any other comments? I will say, as chair, I will bring it forward to the next ARC meeting that we have. I'll make sure it is on the agenda and it's something that we can discuss, because I understand where you're coming from, but I just wanted you to understand why we made the decision that we made. There were like, we didn't take that decision lightly. There were multiple, because we do want to help as many parents as we can. We get that. We get the need for that. But at the time we tried it, and with the current model, it just didn't work. But it doesn't mean that we have to stick with this current model forever, right? There's always room to look at things again and see how we can do things differently or what works best. Okay. Any other comments? No? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, this is a whole new system here. Okay, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you again for listening. I will say we do understand that this is not a council decision. However, unfortunately, our concerns were brought to the Argyle Recreation Department, and we felt as though at that time they were not heard, and there was not a room for a conversation there, that it was pretty shut down. Therefore, we felt at that point that we needed to take it somewhere. This, again, may not be the most perfect place to bring it, but at the same time, to get change, sometimes you have to take it to certain steps. I also want to acknowledge the Recreation Department. I do also see them as my colleagues. I've been in the recreation world for a very long time. I've trained with these folks coming out of it. I do see them as my colleagues, and also I respect the challenges. As I said, I get it. I have to create and implement services for recreation. I have to hire students. I know what it's like out there. I really do. And given that, as you had mentioned, Warden, for some of the concerns and the reasons for safety and things like that, given the reasons I've heard, I have a lot of concerns coming back to that about some of those reasons and the safety involving 5 and 12-year-olds together and that sort of thing, which I will definitely bring to the Argyle Recreation Department. And I think just the other thing to note is where you may not have heard some of these concerns bring up in the last few years. Again, COVID really threw a wrench into things, but also we were part of the 2017 baby boom, and I'm not sure if you're aware that happened, but we are now we maxed capacities in the Grandiers. We maxed out daycares when we were there. It's a large group of kids. So it created an obvious situation when all of a sudden you have these full Grandier classes coming out, assuming, because of what we'd heard and seen, that ages 5 to 12, we assumed our kids turned 5, they're able to go to these day camps. And it was a situation where we realized that's not the case. And now all of us were scrambling, kind of trying to figure out at the 11th hour where all these kids are going to go and what we want to do, because we're also trying to keep them together as much as possible to keep that going. So yeah, just a few comments there, but totally appreciate the time, and definitely appreciate where the Recreation Department is coming from. I fully understand. If it's created through a daycare situation too, in terms of creating something different for that age group, hey, wonderful. All we're looking for is a chance to change for the future, that this gap in service is closed. That's what we're looking for at the end of the day. I've got a 2-year-old coming up the pipe. I'd really like her to have a place to go by that time comes. So yeah, thank you very much. We really do appreciate you taking the time to listen. I know you have a full agenda, so yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, okay. CAO Muse.
Just in response to the comment of the non-responsiveness of the Recreation Department, I would say that it's unfortunate that you felt that way, but that is absolutely not the position of the Recreation Department. It's unfortunate that you got that impression. We don't get in the habit of talking about specifics and staffs and stuff in a regular council meeting to respect the confidentiality and privacy of what people are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. If you want to escalate issues, or if you continue to have issues, which you've indicated that you do have, I would suggest you do have a process. And the process is, first, the Recreation Department to continue a dialogue with the recreation department and to understand each perspective is the way that you effectively obtain the change that you desire. Escalating a conversation outside of that would come to the office of the CAO. Myself or Scott would be more than happy to listen, but we would in fact engage the department because we are all willing to hear and learn to try to improve. This is how we operate on a day-to-day basis. If you continue to find dissatisfaction with the answer, you could, at your option, escalate it to the ARC. You have heard from our deputy warden, who is also the chair of this meeting, that she's a competent person and will be working with all of these people. The closer you work with the department, the more chance you'll have for success in your endeavor. But the opposite is also true. So continue the dialogue. And I think what you'll find is that you have very reasonable people who want to look at your situation and will find ways to try to bridge the gap. Okay.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you very much. Again, we appreciate you coming in. We will, we always listen. We always take everybody's opinions into consideration. I'll have it on the agenda at the next meeting. Okay, you're welcome. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Number 5, we have the adoption of minutes, June 14th, 2022. We have the minutes are attached. Is there anybody willing to make a motion to move those minutes? Move, seconded by Councillor Surratt. Any questions on those minutes? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Next, we have number 6, business arising from the minutes. We have the firefighter recruitment that is deferred for this evening. Number 7, for decision and discussion, 7A, Article C48, proclamation policy. There is an attachment of 1 page. We've talked about this in the past. We've talked about whether or not we are going to entertain proclamations because we get proclamations that come to us on a fairly regular basis. And sometimes we're not sure what to do with them. And we had some conversation around what do we do? Do we honor them? Do we not? And we had kind of had a conversation about, well, no, we're not going to entertain. So a policy was created. Tonight, we have the ability to pass this policy if we feel comfortable with it. Are there any questions or comments on this? Question on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. We are efficient. Next, we have the 4-day work week policy. We have an attachment of 2 pages. This is another one we've had a conversation about as well. So it's a pilot project that staff is wanting to try to go to a 4-day work week policy. So we've talked about how this will work, how there'll be alternating days. For me, when I read this and I looked through it, for me, the biggest worry was the office is going to be open every single day of the week. We wouldn't want to not have services. We wouldn't want the office completely closed down, but that's not at all the concern. Was it Deputy CEO? Was it you? Do you want any other comments you'd like to make on it?
I just would like to make a comment.
Sure.
When I made.
Sorry. That was me.
Sorry, Madam Chair. What was circulated today is a little bit different than what we circulated at the last meeting, and it's on 4.9. I just want to share that with you guys. And I've put it in red so you guys can see that. We talked to staff about this, and me and Ala had more conversation. We just added a little more to this, unless approved by CEO, it does it. It just gives us a little more flexibility in case there was something about we needed to combine breaks or whatever to make it work more smoothly. This would give us a little more flexibility for me and Ala to approve something. So because if not, then we can't if we're doing anything against the policy.
Right.
So we just added that to give us a little more flexibility.
Are there any questions on this? Councillor Digdon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The only thing I'm looking at, I don't know if I'm not seeing it or what's going on. When we first talked about it, we thought maybe like a 6-month trial to see if how the staff thought of it and how things were going, and then go from there. But I'm not seeing a 6-month trial here or nothing like that. I'm just seeing that we're implementing this policy, and I don't know if that was dropped or if I'm not seeing it. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Deputy CEO.
Good point, Councillor Digdon. It's not there, but we have said to staff that this would be a pilot project for, we said 8 months. That's what we would try it, but we would review it after 2 and then review it maybe after 6, and then we'd bring it back to council to tell you what we found from staff to see to continue. But I will say it's not in the policy. We could add it if that's council's wish.
Okay. Councillor Surratt?
I think this is a great policy. I think it'll, as was mentioned at the last meeting or prior, this is well thought out, this is well put together, and this will help us keep our staff. We have good staff, good people, and here's a good way to keep them. Thank you. That's a great policy.
Warden.
Yeah, just wondering about this is, the lunch break is half hour now with this. Now I know we have a number of staff who use their lunch hour either to exercise, to walk and whatever. And I'm wondering if that's going to be a problem. But when I see here that if it's approved, if someone needed to do that for whatever reason, it could be approved. Because it would be a shame to deny people who want to be active that they can't be because they just don't have the time at noon. A half hour break goes by quite fast. By the time you eat your lunch and you don't have a whole lot of time to do anything else. And we're pushing for active living, and I wouldn't want to think that we're denying some of our staff from being able to do that. That's the only thing I would say.
Thank you.
And just in response to that, the recreation would be really proud for you to saying that.
They're going to give you your check later.
And that's why we changed 4.9 to give us a little more flexibility with staff. If we wouldn't have added that language, it's point blank. We have to follow the policy, and there's not a whole lot of movement. So adding that language just gives us a little more flexibility to be able to accommodate maybe those types of requests.
Councillor Saulnier?
Thank you, Madam Chair. When do you plan on starting this pilot project? Thanks for the question. We are planning to start on July 4th. Okay. If the policy is passed tonight, we are planning to start on July 4th. Staff is ready. So you need a motion for that? I need the policy to be passed, yes. Okay.
So are we ready to make a motion on this policy, or do we want to see the pilot part in the policy? Councillor Digdon?
I don't know. It's whatever. I'll maybe turn that over to our CAO. I just know that it was mentioned. I'm all for this, by the way. I was all for it last meeting. I'm still for it this meeting. I just don't know if we need it or it was something we were going to look back on just to see how it was working and go from there.
CAO Muse?
To answer your question, I understand your concern. It's legitimate because that's what we said we were going to do. I would suggest that when you pass the motion, that you explicitly state in the approval that it is to return at the date that has been recommended by the Deputy CAO. I would not recommend an amendment to the policy because then you'd have to amend the policy again if ever you felt like it was something of a more permanent nature. So do it in the motion, not in the policy. We have to respect the motion. Does that make sense?
By all means.
Go ahead.
I'm willing to make a motion that we give the 4-day work week a try for the municipality district of Argyle, and that this policy will be reviewed in 8 months' time.
Seconded by Councillor Saulnier. Any questions on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Next we have 7C, community litter cleanup. We did have a presentation a few meetings ago about some concerns around community litter. I think we all see it in our communities. We do have some community champions out there who are cleaning up, though, our communities without us even asking them to. I can name some, I'm sure you all can, which is very much appreciated. But on top of that, we do have our community litter program that we provide some, it's a fundraiser for some community groups, and we do provide some money for some kilometers cleaned. So there is an attachment here that you see about our community litter program. So what is the wish of council to do on this one? What are we looking to do for this one? Councillor Surratt.
I'd like to move that the municipality request via letter that Waste Check develop an educational plan on the promotion of clean communities and the cost of community littering in our communities.
Do we have a seconder to that motion? Okay, seconded by Councillor Bork. Any questions on that? Seeing none, all those in, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Digdon.
No, not so much a question, but just, I don't want to take anything away from Waste Check either. They're doing a great job out there. They do put on a lot of educational sessions and that. And it's hard to, it's going to be hard to educate some of these people that are littering because they're not going to come to these Waste Check meetings anyway. But I'm all for the motion. But the Waste Check is doing a great job as far as I'm concerned, trying their best.
Definitely. Okay, seeing no questions, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion carried. Next we have 7D, request for tax reduction. There are 3 attachments to this one. Let me see. So the second attachment is a letter written by a resident. The third attachment is our policy for dangerous and unsightly. And the first, I kind of went backwards on that, but the first attachment gives council some background on this issue. This is a property that those of us who have been here a while have discussed more than one time. There has been issues on dangerous and unsightly, and there's been some cleanup done. It's not always been successful. It had to be done more than one time. They are looking now to sell the property. So when the cleanup is done, that the bill for that is put on their tax bill. And now they're looking to sell the property, and the resident feels like if they could have that relieved, it might be beneficial to them in selling their property. So that's kind of the background on that. Our CAO has given us some options on where we can go with this. We can either we can approve that request for a certain amount, or we can deny the request. What is the wish of council on this one? Councillor Surratt.
Yes, just more a comment. I mean, after we spent considerable time on this particular place. I kind of have in my mind where it's at, but it doesn't matter where it's at. We spent considerable time, quite a bit of resources on this, and you know, to go there and do all the work we've done and tried our best to keep the place clean. Were many complaints. And then to turn around and have spent this much money, and then to go back and take that off their taxes, I think we're looking to set a precedent here, and I don't agree we should be doing this. That's my comment.
I appreciate that. Councillor Digdon.
100% behind Councillor Surratt, and that because I feel as though what we're doing there is we clean up properties for these people, and we're using taxpayers' money, and that now to get it wrote off, and I don't believe we should be doing that at all. And you know, I guess it'll be a pretty easy target next time around if you don't want your property cleaned up, and that the municipality is going to come in, clean it up, and don't worry about paying for it. It'll be just all the taxpayers are going to end up paying for it. Don't agree with that at all. He's going to have to take $11,000 less or whatever and make it the check payable to the municipality disregard. I'll get it paid like that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, So we have a couple of suggested motions. Is anybody willing to make a motion on how we deal with this one?
I move that the request for the reduction of taxes on property account number 0351763 be denied by council, and that the applicant be given the reason for the denial.
Do we have a seconder on that motion? Seconded by Councillor Digdon. Any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Next, we have 7E, summer meetings. Our executive assistant is going to take that one.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It has come to my attention that council typically recesses their regular meetings and their committee of the whole meetings for the summer months, being July and August, with the understanding that special meetings may occur, of course. Should council wish to do that this summer, a motion is required. So, yeah.
Thank you. Is anybody willing to make that motion? Motion made by Councillor Bork, seconded by Councillor Boudreau. Questions on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Look at us go. We are good. You haven't said much.
He's next.
I think I just jinxed us. Yes. Oh, I just jinxed us. 7F. New position for Protection Services Department from the CAO. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you very much
You
for
are welcome.
providing me the occasion to speak. I know I'm a man of few words, so I'll keep it long. So the new position, so look, this is just an update that I want to bring to your attention, okay? So as you know, we vacated a position and we have not filled that position, was Community Development Officer. We decided to kind of like, time out and take a look at what our actual needs are. So leadership team has been kind of scratching their heads around what the best way to do this. And, without getting into all the details, obviously there's Community Development Officer, there's inclusion and diversity coordinators, there's communications persons, there's all sorts of opportunities that we see a gap in, right? There's always a gap in service, always. You can't service everyone all the time for everything. So, but one of the things that is, so many of those positions are nice to have positions, but we have a need to have position. And that position has to do with the Protection Services Department. I just want to explain to you the gap that we have there very quickly. We do have a budget for this position, okay? I just want to say that right up the front. The position was anticipated to have John Sullivan occupy at least part-time for a good section of the year. So we're not talking about a new line item necessarily. We're not talking about a new position even. It's actually included in your organizational chart that you approved. But I'd like to give you a little bit more detail about why it's a need position. Right now, building inspections and permits, the last 2 years have exploded. I think the numbers I can pull up here, me and Scott might race to see who can pull it up fastest. So right now, according to our building inspector, permits up to today, building permits 76. So keep in mind, this is 6 months, right? Development permits 87, and that's a total of 163 permits. I believe that includes demolition, but I couldn't confirm that today. I think that's a development permit. I could be wrong there. So just so that you know, 163, that's 10 higher than last year in 6 months. If I went back 2-3 years, I would see that number very, very different, much lower. So here's the issue. We have, and I'm not going to speak on the specifics of people delivering the service, okay? But we have traditionally had 2 building inspectors in the past. We used to, that position used to be housed, it used to be a dual position with the Director of Public Works. So our previous Director of Public Works initially was Laurie Doucette. She occupied the building inspector certification, as well as Roger Devine, as well as Andrew Gorham, as well as Glenn Muse. So each of them, I just said I wasn't going to say names, but I'm just telling you what their certifications were, okay? They were certified level 2 building inspectors. So we always had 2. We hired John Sullivan, he had 1. and then Glenn moved to a different organization. So we hired another public works director and moved John over to do inspections. By the grace of John, really, I could go forever on that. Anyway, I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but too late. And so he is retired. He's trying to retire. And the issue that we have is that building inspectors in the next 5 years, if the number of retirees in the next 5 years is probably 6, and we have 12 total, in an environment that is busier than ever. So we're really struggling with keeping up with a very valuable service, which is the building inspection service. Jeff Gushu, CEO for the town, likes to coin it as is one of the only mandatory services that municipalities actually deliver. And that's true if you exclude the solid waste service, which is usually contracted. But when you look at employees, like what you have to hire, you have to have that building inspector. So we have a very young, ambitious, wonderful human being as our building inspector. And we also have a full-time fire inspector that was badly needed. Both of them require a significant amount of support, one that only a certification can fill. Here's the strategy. So the strategy is basically, let's get that person in here and get them trained, because it takes like 2 years to train them. And if there's not enough work for this person for Argyle, I can assure you there's enough work for this person elsewhere. So we can either share the service we can start at the front and say share service with somebody, share the cost, do all that stuff. Or we can be aggressive and get the service and then sell it. If people aren't willing to share with us at the beginning, they're surely going to share with us in the end. I can assure you of that. We see it coming. So we have had these conversations with other municipalities. Every municipality is in a different situation. So some people are just fine. But when you lose one, it's right away. So you're in trouble right away. We've seen it in Digby. We've seen it in Clare. They're really scrambling to try to keep up. This is why when we came to a conclusion, it's like the number one position to fill. We are down. We are down one full-time staff right now, right? And we haven't filled the position. So we're saying the development officer position that could be trained into a building inspector would be fantastic for this organization, not only for today, but for the next 5 to 7 years. It's also a backup plan in case we lose one, right? Because that's always possible. As much as things happen, right? And the market out there is very, very hard. Like the demand is very high. So that usually causes recruitment of existing staff that we have to be mindful of. So it's my conclusion that we advertise for that position ASAP. We fill it and we train it. In anticipation of some questions, we took a look at the training opportunities, and we know that our current person would be very willing to train them through. Even if they're young in the business, they can still train them through. We have other people that are willing to train. And for goodness sakes, we want to respect the end of a career of a person who has given us far too much. And that's the reasoning behind all of that. I apologize for as long as the conversation might have been. You're welcome, Councillor Albright. But I think it's important for you to understand how we got to this decision and why we want to bring it to council, so that council doesn't really need to endorse via motion because you've already got it in the budget. But it's to understand that we're going to go out there and we're going to look for someone, and you're our lead, and we want you to be the first to know. So that's the purpose of the conversation. Okay. And I'll entertain any questions that might come out of it.
Warden Muse.
I think what you're doing is good planning, because like you said, there's only so many that are qualified, and I think you were saying that in the province? No, correct. In the province.
In the province is the truth, and in the region. So
you know that eventually somebody's going to be looking, and sometimes it doesn't take much to encourage someone from moving somewhere else, right? And you could lose a person very, very quickly. So this person would have to go through the same training, right? I mean, it's a training here, but there's still some outside training that they need to do. But there's nothing wrong with having two that are qualified, if we can have two that are qualified, as far as I'm concerned. The work is there. You've mentioned how many permits that they have to deal with, and I think, to me, it's the way to go. Let's get ourselves ahead before we're hit with something that we have to make a quick decision, and making a quick decision on something like that doesn't help you very much, because you hire someone that really can't do the job. They have to be trained, and it takes time. No, I certainly agree with your strategy there to go ahead and do that.
Thank you. Councillor Saulnier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too agree with what you've said. My only question is, because we've kind of discussed this in the past about losing these employees, and I know there's no magic wand to keep them here, but is there any policies now that will lessen those chances that you didn't have before, so to speak?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, one you just passed. The 4-day work plan is a recruitment tool. I don't want to leave council with the impression that we're hiring under the threat of loss. We are primarily hiring due to the opportunities that our businesses and our residents are now presenting to us. So this is about filling our demand first and foremost. I would say I'm very confident in saying that we have a great group of staff right at this moment, very committed to their work, very professional. But as anything, especially in a high demand area, there's always the temptation of any staff to feel like maybe the grass is greener in another place. And so part of the work of our team, including, you know, the lead being the deputy CAO, is let's create an environment that makes it very difficult for somebody to make that decision. And so I think we're moving in that direction. And also it's about part of retaining wonderful staff is making sure they're not overworked. And this would be another example of not overworking the lead, because not only is that person the lead in building inspection, you know, they're getting phone calls on the weekend from people, weekend warriors, like they want an answer to a question. So it's not just I'm going to go see, it is a function of what they do. They're on a lot. And also being the head of a department that includes fire inspection and GIS, there are other responsibilities, including joint occupational health and safety. So we put a lot on our people. We do, and we just don't want people to be burnt out. And I think this is good strategy. And if suddenly the permits drop off, then we could sell. We have an opportunity. We have two trained people that could actually sell a service to third parties that may not have the luxury of having to.
So just to add, like, certain municipalities obviously have more money than us, and their affordability is much greater. Is there any protection, or is there any indication that the province might try to balance that out, so to speak? Probably not, I'm guessing.
Well, it's an excellent question. The answer is probably not, because that would be playing in the pond of the municipalities. So they have a tendency to not want to do that. I think that I can only say from my own lane in the municipality, how others play in their lane as municipalities is their prerogative in business. From our own perspective, we've made it a habit to train rather than steal, because stealing is a net zero game. If you steal from a neighbor and you're all requiring a building inspector, you just traded Guy Lafleur for Wayne Gretzky. I mean, they're both really good. And you might have one, like there's no benefit to stealing from one to benefit yourself. There is, it's very short term. What we need is more of them. And so we have a department willing to work to that end, a very competent department and lead. So that's what we're doing. But I mean, is there fiscal, financial things that the province might do? Hey, that might be possible. I'd go on and on, but I'd only say that the last piece I'd say is the province is actually doing the opposite. not intentionally. They're giving us Coastal Protection Act that requires building inspectors to actually do very specific work. So what they're actually doing is giving us more work. They're not subsidizing that work necessarily, if that makes any sense.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, so you don't need a motion for us. That was information to let us know so that we weren't in the dark if we saw it posted.
I feel like that's correct. And I feel like I wanted permission.
Yeah.
Right? Really, like while it's not a necessary thing, I've always respected what this council has to offer. And I think because it's a new position, it really would like that permission is validating for me and confirms our decision as a leadership group for sure.
I'll make a motion that our CAO begin the process of hiring a new position in the Protection Service Department.
Do I have, seconded by Councillor Sonia. Questions on that? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion carried. Next, we have 7G. Councillor Digdon, you want to talk about the exit or stop sign.
Okay, this evening, as you people know, I normally get here quite early on council night and shoot the breeze for a few minutes, but while I was getting ready this evening, we had a page with the West Pubnico Fire Department. We had a page of a motor vehicle collision in Pubnico Head, and there was a collision involving a transport truck and a car. There was injuries resulting from this collision. And while I was on scene, I was talking with the fire chief of the West Pubnico Fire Department, who was also on scene. And he's had, this is not our first accident down there at this intersection. And a lot of people have been concerned for a long time. One thing that doesn't help, and it's nobody's fault by no means, that's just the location of the business, is the Creamy Treat in Pubnico Head. And by no means, it's a great place, great run establishment. It's just in a dangerous area. And why it's in a dangerous area might be able to make that area a little safer. And what I'd like to see is, and I'd like to see if we can get this letter off. I know that we passed a motion this evening about taking July and August off, so that's why I would really like to bring it up here this evening. And like to see if we can get a letter sent off to TIR about where the intersection 3 and 335 intersection to look at traffic patterns and signage and to see if there's a way to make it safer around that location.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Second that.
Any questions or comments on that? Gordon.
Just a question. So are they looking for stops? It used to be a stop sign at the end of 335.
There was.
And the 3 with the corner was the throughway, right?
I believe so.
So are they looking now to put the stop sign back where it was, or you don't even know? You just want them to do a study to see what can be done. It is a dangerous spot. There's absolutely no doubt. So I'm just wondering what they're looking for. A 3-way stop sign? I'm not sure.
I guess, Mr. Warden, thank you. Great question. There was mention this evening on scene of a 3-way stop. There was mention of a 2-way stop. I guess what I'd like to see done is it passed over to the professionals and let them recommend what would be best for that intersection, because I honestly don't know what would be best, but I feel as though that's what they know, that's what they do. And instead of me go on camera saying, I think this should be or that should be, I don't know. And so I'd recommend let that go to the professionals and see what they come up with.
Okay. Any other questions on that? We had a seconder, did we not have a seconder?
We did,
Yes.
Mr.
Okay.
Surratt.
Any other questions on that? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, Motion carried.
In case you missed that, I'm still waving. I'm thinking we're still on Zoom. I'm waved there.
And I still saw you, because I'm still looking for it. Okay, so next we are going to move on to number 8, correspondence and for information. So 8A was a letter from Minister John Lohr, regarding housing and some initiatives that are coming through. Housing is an issue. We know it's an issue. Any questions or comments on that? Councillor Digdon.
Councillor Digdon. Yeah. I hope Minister John Lohr don't see this, but I guess the big thing is there now, when we were speaking with him, he was talking about land exchanges and all that. Land is not the problem. I don't feel as though across the province and that or across Canada right now for housing, it's money. You know, if they give us some money tomorrow, we can find some land. And that, but the big problem out there right now with housing is money or lack of funds to provide adequate housing.
Great.
Thank you.
8B, we have the minutes from the Western County Regional Library meeting. Any questions or comments on that? 8C, we have 2 attachments for the courthouse window tender. So the first one is a memo from Kyle Boudreau, and then we have the actual tender package. Deputy CEO, did you want to speak to that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, just want to just kind of recap what you're seeing there is that the tender went out. It was out for three weeks. We only received one tender back. It fit our budget. Again, it's under for information because you guys have already passed the capital budget, which was included. So you guys really have already passed this. So it's for information only. And, you know, we've given in the tender, we had given the applicants the opportunity to complete the work until December 15th. And they've indicated it may need even longer, but with only one bid, there's not much we could do with that.
Any questions for the Deputy CEO? Okay, we'll move on to number 8D, Congrès Mondial. Deputy CEO, that's you again.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, we've been talking a little bit about the Congrès Mondial, and I just wanted to give Council a little kind of recap or update of where we are and what's going on. Kind of a high level, the office of the Congrès Mondial has opened up a few weeks ago at the old Marco's restaurant, or the PVSC building here in Tuscan. They set up a website, which I've shared with Council through my staff report. They've started to put some promotional material out, which is this right here, which I've shared with all of you maybe at the last few meetings. I also attended my second meeting with the Congrès Mondial folks. And at that meeting, the Conseil Développement Économique, the Novecos is there, YASTA is there, CAPEB is there, the municipality of Clare is there, and the sister company company to CAPEB for Clare is also there. I apologize, I don't remember their name, but and Vaughn is there, who's the director of the Congrès Mondial. And what we talk about is basically what we're doing right now in our organization or for the municipality, what we're doing, and we kind of brainstorm what we can do for the Congrès Mondial. And one of the questions that I've shared or asked Vaughn was, what can the municipality do for the Congrès Mondial? And one of the suggestions she shared with me was we could do a twinning with another municipality or another town. She suggested Louisiana because she's doing a lot of promoting out there. I share that too because recently we met with Société Nationale Acadienne. I know some of you have met with that group last week when they were around, and they are the society that chooses who hosts the Congrès Mondial. So they know a little bit about the Congrès Mondial. So I asked them also what we could do as a municipality to prepare for the Congrès Mondial. And one of the things that came out was to continue to partner with Clare.
So that if we've made some partnership already, we're in meetings with them, we're talking about different things, different projects. They just say, keep on doing that even after the Congrès Mondial is completed, to continue, exchanging ideas, et cetera, and partnering in different projects. The other thing that they also mentioned, though, that if they could also assist with the twinning if we were willing to do that for the Congrès Mondial. And I just put that out there to council to discuss. I'm not saying we should or we shouldn't. I think the council should talk about and discuss, and we're just kind of throwing out ideas tonight. On top of that, we, myself with the CAO, met with Vaughn, the director of Congrès Mondial. We discussed a few different things too and one of the things was, what can we do for the Congrès Mondial? One of the things we talked about was a legacy project. So a legacy project would be like the track and field that we did in 2012 for the Acadian Games. We created a legacy project there where we created the track and field, and it's still, we're still using it now. Schools are using it. We're hosting some meets, and I'm not going to go into details because I know the CAO shared with you what's going on with the track at the last meeting. So, but I just wanted to share that was one thing talked about. But another good point that the CAO brought out at that meeting was, how do we get our resident of municipality of Argyle excited or engaged in the Congrès Mondial? And again, we talked about different ideas, but I put it back out to council to say, give us some feedback so that we can bring it back and maybe plan with staff and plan with Vaughn to see what we can do. So I'm throwing out a lot of ideas tonight, and you guys can give me some feedback tonight or at any time. The other piece is that I think I will invite Vaughn maybe in the early spring, late fall, early fall, to do a presentation to council, and then she can talk about the funding, she can talk about the schedule, because that's still work in progress and I don't have a whole lot of details.
Great idea. Great idea.
So I think I will book that. Vaughn's been, she meets with all kinds of different groups. She does all kinds of trade shows. She's been in France, she's been in Louisiana, and I will share with council is that she's basically an open invitation to council if we were to be interested in participating in one of the trade shows that she attends. She goes to Louisiana twice a year to do these trade shows. And certainly if we're interested in doing the twinning, it would probably be a good idea that we maybe look at that if that's the choice of council and where we want to go. So, yeah, and that's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Surratt.
Yeah, Scott, Scott, something that I think this council could do would be to really encourage people to dress up their place.
Mm-hmm.
This would be so good.
Yeah.
To have people somehow to encourage them, some kind of initiative or something. I'm not saying we could put money out, but something like the Christmas tree program that we had done for different causes, because there was no Christmas tree being lit up. I think it all just takes a little bit of pushing, because I know the Congrès we had. Firstly, when you see in one house decorated maybe 3 or 4 houses down the road, I'm trying to match that. Or, you saw Pubnico was all geared up so nice. It encouraged a lot of people. So if we could, just something to think about.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor, sir.
Yeah.
Councillor Saulnier.
Thank you. Just to expand on Guy's idea, I think if we added some kind of competition within that, whether it's art or anything someone can think of that our neighborhoods can compete in and showcase it during the Congrès Mondial, I think it would be a great thing. Thank you.
Thank you. We have some thinking to do, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
we do.
Let's think about how we can.
The other piece that, if I may, Madam Chair,
definitely.
that we talk about at this meeting that we sit with Vaughn is even though we talk about Clare and Argyle, Yarmouth should be involved in this also in our discussion. people will be traveling from Clare to Argyle, will pass through Yarmouth.
Yes.
So when you're coming off the boat, you should be able to see Acadian flags. We should, the main street should have some Acadian flags and all this stuff. Like we should be represented in Yarmouth. So there's another piece that we need to help out is not only promote here in Argyle, but also maybe help the folks in Yarmouth.
You're sleeping in state and eating in Yarmouth.
That's a
Exactly.
good point. CAO Muse?
Just a suggestion that we should have, and we will have, a standing item for the Congrès Mondial. So at every meeting, we will have it on your agenda. So anytime anything comes up, that would be the place to discuss it. If we have things to come in terms of decisions, et cetera, that'll be the place. It should stay there. It's a big deal. Just to give you an understanding of size, the amount of people that we could be expecting for that 1 week, let's say, I could be wrong on the length of time, would be the same as the Cats traffic for the entire season. So it's a lot of people. It has the potential of attracting a lot of people. And keep in mind, people have been cooped up for like 3 years, right? So they might be willing to come into Nova Scotia and take a look at L'Acadie. And let's not forget, L'Acadie is in Clare and Argyle, but it is also in our neighboring vicinities of Barrington and Yarmouth. There are many Acadians that reside in those municipalities and would have equal amount of pride around what being Acadian is for them. And it's a very personal journey, clearly. But we'll put it on a standing item. So we want to do that purposely so that it's always on your mind, because we are a valued partner from the perspective of Vaughn and her team.
Councillor Surratt?
You'll have to feed me candies pretty soon. but I won't drag this on. But to give you an idea, 2024, 95 members of the Abbe and Jacqueline family are going to be down. Wow. That just gives you 95. So that's...
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Thank you, Deputy CAO. 8E, service exchange negotiations. So the draft copy is attached. We met weeks ago to discuss this. We had a meeting about this and the shared services, and we talked about what we felt, but our CAO worked on this even more and provided us with a draft. I think we've all had the opportunity to see this, and comments were delivered to the CAO, and I think we all felt like this was an excellent report. Are there any other comments or questions for the CAO on this one? Okay. Are you good?
I'll just continue.
Okay.
I'll just keep going down to the questions.
Mm-hmm. So far, so good.
Tell me when to stop.
Stop when you're done.
Thank you. You're welcome.
All right. Next, financial request, number 9. So 9A, district community grant request. That one goes to Councillor Bork.
Yes, I would like to give out $500 to the Ladies Auxiliary of the East Pamlico Fire Department.
Somebody willing to second that motion?
Second.
Seconded. Question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. 9B, again, Councillor Bork.
Yeah, I'd like to grant the request of $500 to the Pamlico Light Monument Society.
Seconded by Councillor Woodrow. Questions on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. 9C, Councillor Bork.
I'd like to give $500 to the Eastside Community Center.
Seconder. Seconded by Councillor Digdon. Questions on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. 9D, District Community Grant from Warden Muse.
I received a letter from the president of the organization, president of the board, is what she said, and she's requesting $500 for the where am I here? The Argyle Farmers Market, and I would like to give them $500, and I'll also move.
Second. Seconded by Councillor Bork. Questions on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. 9E is a community grant for Councillor Surratt.
district community grant for Paramba Seniors Club is A&A for $500 to help them out.
Do we have a seconder on that?
Second.
Seconded by Warden Muse. Questions on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion carried. 9G. The next three are for 9F, 9G, and 9H are for Councillor Digdon. So Councillor Digdon, you want to start with your first one?
Yes, $500 to the fund to go in their regarding club.
Seconder? Thank you. Councillor Saulnier, questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion carried. Next one, Councillor Digdon.
The Société Historique Acadienne de Pamlico West, $500.
Thank you. Seconder? Question? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion carried. And the last one.
Yes, $500 for Ami de Musée.
Seconder? Question? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion carried. Thank you. Next, we have number 10, agenda topics for the next meeting. Councillor Digdon.
Not so much of a, is not at all. Maybe I'm even speaking out of line here. But I'm going to say it anyway, and I guess I'll take the punishment for it after if I am. Since our last meeting, the municipality of Argyle has lost a person that has helped a lot of people with her husband for years and years and years. And that would be the loss of Heather Loveridge, Dr. Loveridge's wife. And I'd just like Dr. Loveridge to know, and family and friends of Heather, that on behalf of the council and on behalf of the municipality of Argyle and a lot of residents of the municipality of Argyle, our heartfelt condolences to them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question period. No questions? Nothing for in camera? So can we have somebody move to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
We have a seconder on that. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion